Before we begin today's discussion, welcome back to Teatro, Gold Rush Reporter, the place where we dig deeper into the truths behind gold, silver, and the global financial system. If you're serious about understanding what's really going on behind the curtain of central banks and the markets, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and keeps you informed when it matters most. Now, let's get into today's critical topic, because what's happening right now could change everything we know about money. We've reached an essential crossroads. There's far more paper gold circulating in the system than there is real physical gold in existence. And that realization is finally beginning to sink in around the world. Evidence going all the way back to former Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan, along with testimony from members of Congress, shows that the world's central banks, especially the Federal Reserve, have been leasing out more and more gold as its price rises. This kind of financial engineering has gone on for years, but we're getting closer to the moment when this illusion can't be sustained anymore. The problem is, most of the people in power don't even realize what's happening. A large portion of Congress remains completely unaware of how serious this imbalance is. Before this crisis hits full force, it's going to be up to regular people, viewers like you, to reach out and inform your representatives about the reality behind this issue. Because once the system starts to crack, the establishment already has their talking points prepared to explain it away. And when that happens, they'll use fear as their main weapon. This could very easily mirror the events of 2008, a financial crisis that triggered panic and control. Back then, we saw entire markets freeze, credit vanish, and governments step in with emergency powers. If the same scenario plays out again, it might not just stop at financial intervention. Some analysts even believe that martial law could be imposed if things spiral out of control. It's not an exaggeration. The warning signs are already flashing. We're looking at a potential global financial catastrophe. If the system built on paper promises and digital IOUs collapses, the results will be devastating. People will struggle to buy essentials, savings could evaporate overnight, and panic will ripple across nations. Those who understand what's happening, those who've prepared, will be in a much stronger position to survive it. That's why it's so important to stay informed, to prepare now rather than later. For decades, the financial system has operated on trust. Trust in paper, trust in digital numbers, trust in the idea that there's always something backing it all. But as confidence begins to crumble, only one thing will matter: what you physically hold in your hand. Gold and silver aren't just assets. They're real money that can't be printed out of thin air or erased by a keystroke. When that trust in the digital system breaks, people will rush to tangible value, and history shows this pattern repeats itself again and again. Every financial collapse tells the same story. The majority laughs at those who hold precious metals until the system fails. Then, suddenly, those same people scramble to get what they once mocked. It's a cycle as old as markets themselves. But the question now is, what's really going on behind the scenes? And why are experts like Alex Newman suggesting that silver could soon outshine every other asset in global demand? That's what we're going to uncover step by step. In the next part, we'll start breaking down how this fragile paper gold structure was built, who's really controlling it, and why the shift toward physical metals, especially silver, might already be underway. Stay tuned, because the deeper we go, the more clearly the truth will reveal itself. What's unfolding behind the scenes right now is far bigger than most people realize. The structure holding up the global gold market has been built on layers of paper promises, and those layers are starting to crack. For decades, central banks have quietly lent out gold reserves to manipulate market prices and maintain the illusion of stability. As long as confidence held, the system seemed to function. But now, as more investors demand physical delivery instead of digital claims, that illusion is beginning to collapse. Former Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan once admitted that central banks stand ready to lease gold in increasing quantities should the price rise. In simple terms, that means when gold prices climb, the central banks release more paper gold to suppress the market and keep it under control. But this isn't sustainable forever. Each time they lease gold, they're creating more claims on the same limited amount of metal. It's like hundreds of people being handed a receipt for the same ounce of gold, and all believing they truly own it. Eventually, reality catches up. When that happens, there will be only two possible outcomes. Either the system defaults on those paper promises, or it resets entirely. If a default occurs, the paper holders, those who own ETFs, futures contracts, or gold certificates, will find out their assets were just numbers on a screen, not real metal. If the system resets, it will mean returning to some form of sound money, possibly even a gold or silver-backed standard. But that kind of transition won't be smooth. It will bring turmoil, political resistance, and possibly civil unrest. That's why the role of the people becomes so critical. Most lawmakers don't understand how serious this is or how deep the problem runs. They rely on briefings, advisors, and surface-level information, often provided by the very institutions creating this imbalance. But there are exceptions. Some members of Congress, like Alex Mooney, have already introduced bills calling for a return to a gold-backed US dollar. These moves haven't gained much traction yet, but they show that a small group inside Washington understands that a fiat-based system has limits, and we're dangerously close to reaching them. The establishment, of course, already has its narrative ready. When the crisis hits, they'll claim it was unpredictable, a sudden collapse caused by unforeseen circumstances. But make no mistake, this will be a man-made disaster decades in the making. Central banks and financial elites have known all along that printing and borrowing endlessly would eventually break the system. They simply chose to delay the consequences for as long as possible. Meanwhile, the symptoms are becoming impossible to ignore. Inflation is eating away at savings. Government debt is ballooning at record speed. And ordinary citizens are starting to lose faith in their currency. As confidence fades, investors look for safe havens. And that's where physical metals come in. Silver, in particular, is beginning to draw attention not only from investors, but also from industrial sectors that depend on it. This dual demand, both as money and as a resource, is setting the stage for what could be silver's most powerful rally in modern history. We're not just witnessing the end of a financial cycle. We're witnessing the end of an era built on paper illusions. The next phase won't be about speculation or quick trades. It will be about survival and preservation of value. Those who hold real assets will weather the storm. Those who rely on digital promises may find out too late that those promises were empty. In the next part, we'll look closer at how silver's role in the global market differs from gold, why its smaller and more volatile market could make it the first to break free, and what that means for investors who act before the rush begins. Silver's story is far more dynamic than most people give it credit for. While gold often takes the spotlight as the ultimate safe haven, silver quietly moves in the background, building strength from two powerful sources, monetary value and industrial necessity. And right now, both of those forces are converging in a way that could create an unprecedented surge in silver demand. Unlike gold, which is largely hoarded by central banks and long-term investors, silver has a real-world utility that makes it irreplaceable. It's a key component in modern technology, from solar panels and electric vehicles to medical equipment and advanced electronics. Every year, industries consume millions of ounces of silver, much of which is never recovered. Once it's used in manufacturing, it's gone for good. That means the available supply is shrinking, even as demand keeps growing. At the same time, silver still holds its ancient identity as real money. It has been used as currency for thousands of years, and unlike digital or paper systems, it doesn't rely on government promises. When confidence in fiat money collapses, and it always does eventually, people turn back to tangible stores of value. That's when silver's monetary side reawakens. The world's investors begin to realize that silver is not just an industrial metal. It's a hedge against chaos, a protection against the erosion of purchasing power. What's remarkable is that the general public still hasn't caught on. For now, the mainstream financial media keeps focusing on stocks, bonds, and crypto, while silver quietly builds pressure behind the scenes. But when sentiment shifts, it shifts fast. History shows us that silver moves explosively when the crowd finally notices. In the 1970s, and again in 2011, silver prices skyrocketed within months once investors realized how undervalued it was compared to gold. This time, the conditions are even more extreme. Debt is higher, inflation is worse, and the trust in paper assets is weaker than ever. Another key factor is supply manipulation. Just as central banks and major institutions play games with gold pricing through paper contracts, similar mechanisms exist in the silver market. Massive short positions are maintained by a few large players to suppress prices and control perception. But the cracks in that system are starting to show. The physical silver market is tightening. Premiums are rising. Inventories on exchanges like the COMEX are dropping, and delivery delays are becoming more common. When investors realize there simply isn't enough real silver to meet all the paper claims, it could trigger a short squeeze unlike anything we've seen before. This is why many analysts believe silver might outperform gold in the next major financial upheaval. It's smaller, more volatile, and easier for a sudden wave of investment to overwhelm. A relatively small shift in capital, from stocks or crypto into silver, could send prices soaring. And once momentum builds, it feeds on itself. That's how markets move from quiet accumulation to explosive mania. The real question now is timing. When does this shift begin, and what will spark it? It could be triggered by a loss of faith in government bonds, a currency devaluation, or even geopolitical tension that shakes confidence in global trade. Whatever the trigger, silver's fundamentals are already in place. The only thing missing is mass awareness. In the next part, we'll explore what could cause that turning point, the moment when silver transitions from a quiet hedge to a global headline, and what smart investors can do right now to prepare before the rest of the world wakes up to what's coming. The turning point for silver may come faster than anyone expects. Markets tend to move gradually at first, then suddenly. And silver has all the ingredients for that kind of explosive shift. Right now, the world is in a phase of quiet accumulation. Central banks are increasing their gold reserves, nations like China and Russia are moving away from the dollar, and industrial demand for silver is surging quietly in the background. But what happens when these undercurrents meet a spark? That spark could come from any number of directions: a global debt crisis, a currency devaluation, or even a sudden breakdown in trust in the banking system. When people begin to panic, they don't move toward risk. They move toward safety. And silver, despite being undervalued for years, is one of the most accessible safe haven assets available. Unlike gold, which is often out of reach for small investors, silver is affordable. That accessibility could make it the metal of the people, a refuge for those who can't afford gold but still want protection from inflation and economic collapse. When panic hits, millions of ordinary investors rushing into physical silver will create a supply crunch that no amount of paper contracts can cover. We are already seeing the early signs of this. Silver inventories on major exchanges have been declining steadily, and premiums on physical coins and bars have been rising, even when spot prices remain flat. That disconnect between the paper and physical market is one of the clearest signals that stress is building under the surface. At some point, it will break. And when it does, the revaluation of silver will be swift and dramatic. Another overlooked factor is the geopolitical shift happening right now. Countries outside the Western financial system are increasingly seeking alternatives to the US dollar for trade. Many of these nations understand the importance of real, tangible assets, and that includes precious metals. As the dollar's dominance continues to weaken, gold and silver will naturally regain their roles as trusted stores of value in global commerce. The more the dollar is challenged, the stronger silver's position becomes. But it's not just about global trade. Domestically, ordinary people are beginning to wake up too. They're questioning why the cost of living keeps rising, why their savings buy less each year, and why their governments keep printing money like there's no tomorrow. That awakening is slow but steady, and once it reaches a tipping point, the demand for physical silver will explode. Online dealers will sell out, premiums will double or triple, and availability will shrink to almost nothing. It's a scenario that many analysts say could unfold overnight. There's also an emotional element to all this, a loss of faith. The world's financial system has been built on the assumption that central banks will always maintain control. But once that faith breaks, people won't just want an investment, they'll want security. They'll want something they can hold, something that can't be devalued by policy or erased by a computer glitch. Silver represents that kind of certainty. It's not an IOU, it's not a promise, it's real wealth. The reality is, silver's transformation from overlooked metal to essential asset isn't a question of if, but when. All the signs are pointing in that direction. Tightening supply, growing industrial use, rising distrust in fiat systems, and geopolitical shifts that undermine paper-based markets. This is how big changes begin, quietly, gradually, and then all at once. In the next and final part, we'll tie everything together. What this means for investors, how to position yourself before the rush begins, and why understanding silver's role today could be one of the most important financial decisions of your lifetime. As we bring everything together, it becomes clear that silver is standing at the crossroads of history. What's happening right now is not just another market cycle. It's a global shift in how value itself is understood. For decades, people have trusted systems built on paper promises, central bank assurances, and digital balances that can disappear overnight. But as confidence in those systems continues to erode, real money, tangible assets like silver, will reclaim their rightful place at the center of global finance. For everyday people, this change might start quietly, but it won't stay quiet for long. The moment fear enters the system, when currencies falter, debt becomes unpayable, or banks begin to lose trust, the rush to precious metals will ignite like a spark in dry grass. And while gold will certainly surge, it's silver that could deliver the most dramatic returns, both financially and historically. That's because silver is not only money, it's a necessity. It's used in solar energy, electronics, medicine, and emerging technologies. You can't run a modern economy without it, and you definitely can't replace it easily. This combination of industrial demand and monetary value creates a unique setup that no other asset can replicate. When you add in declining mine output, shrinking inventories, and the massive short positions that have kept silver prices artificially low, you begin to see how fragile this balance really is. All it takes is one global event, one supply disruption, one financial shock to tip the scales. And when that moment comes, the price of silver won't rise slowly. It will explode. For those paying attention, this is a rare opportunity, perhaps the last one of its kind. The window to accumulate real silver at reasonable prices is still open, but it's closing fast. Once demand outpaces supply, once panic sets in, it will be too late. The shelves will be empty, premiums will skyrocket, and the average person will be priced out completely. That's why preparation and awareness matter now more than ever. But beyond profit or speculation, silver represents something deeper: independence. It's the ability to hold wealth outside of the system, beyond the reach of manipulation or digital control. It's a form of financial sovereignty that can't be printed, censored, or erased. In a world increasingly dependent on institutions that seem to fail us again and again, silver gives you control over your own financial future. So, as we stand on the edge of what could be a historic shift, ask yourself, when the system resets, what will you trust? Paper promises or physical reality? The choice has always been the same, only now it's more urgent than ever. That wraps up today's discussion here on Gold Rush Reporter. I hope this breakdown helped you see the bigger picture, not just about silver, but about where the global financial system is heading. If you found this analysis valuable, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with others who need to understand what's coming, and subscribe so you don't miss future updates. Until next time, this is Gold Rush Reporter, helping you stay informed, stay prepared, and always think in ounces, not dollars.